Let's do another drunken Q&A. And tonight we're drinking Roman water and a little bit of Irish water. It's been literally a full day of combat arts for me. I woke up early this morning to take my kids to a jiu-jitsu tournament, and if I may be the proud father for a moment, my 10-year-old daughter she won first place in her division. 3 wins, all by submission, armbar, triangle, armbar, and to take first place in her division. And my 7-year-old son took second place in his division with a win on points in his first match and a loss to a rear naked choke on his second match. But both great efforts put up by them, so I couldn't be more proud. And then after that, it was get home, get a quick session of yoga in, and then it was UFC and boxing or for the night. And then here we are now. So it's been a full day of that. I did the AMA, the Ask Me Anything Discord thing last night, and it turned out very good. I was very happy with it. I was very happy with the people that ran the site, and they're very professional and they're very civil. So it is something I'll definitely do again with them if they ask, or if they want me to, which they pretty much said they'd want to. So it's definitely something I'll do again. I think it was a good format. It just unfortunately, for whatever technical difficulties, I couldn't hear people asking questions, so the staff had to read the questions. So hopefully next time I can actually have back and forth with the people asking the questions, because I don't know, it was a little weird for me because they'd ask a question and I'd kind of go ramble on about the question for a little bit, then silence the next question. And it's I think it's better when you have a conversation format where you can have someone interject here and there about to clarify or to disagree or to agree or for whatever thing. I think that's more organic and comes off better. So hopefully next time it'll be more in that format happening. So, but all in all, it was a very good experience, and I'd definitely do it again. And it's definitely a Discord that, whenever I have the time, I'd definitely come in and check out and see who's going on there, because it seemed to have a lot of people, even though they had different political beliefs, they were all thinking outside the box, which is good in itself. So it's definitely a good experience. And then tonight, so out of nowhere, Marshall Ironsides finally calls me up. It's been months since I gave him my phone number, and I was wondering, why the fuck hasn't he called me? So in the middle of the fights, and I have my brother's over, my family's here. We're watching the fights. We're as we do with normally at this time of the week, and he calls up, so we get into a little conversation, and I was happy he finally called up. I was happy he called, because we had not been in contact for months since they banned my last account. And once they ban your YouTube account, it apparently bans whatever Google you're attached to, so you can't go into your Google groups anymore, your Google chats or anything like that. So and that's how we used to communicate mostly. So we're probably going to end up doing, probably for sure, unless something comes up, a Fascist Maxims this Friday coming up, streaming. We'll have to get on there and figure it out again, because it's been such a long time since we streamed from YouTube. I'll have to go figure it out again. Before I get to the Q&A, so a crazy thing about the AMA. So the AMA was supposed to start 7 o'clock my time, and I was supposed to log on about 6:30, just so I can get the microphone and everything working with them. And right around 6:25, 6:30, right as I was about to log on to the Discord, I get a call from, first, because I was doing the AMA, usually on a Friday at that time, or a little before that time, I'd take my kids to piano practice. So this week I had my wife take them, and apparently, so while my daughter's playing piano, my son is in the other room because they take the piano class at the teacher's house. My son's in the other room with the kid who usually takes the class after my kids are done, and they're horsing around, and my son trips over him, and they fall. The kid hits the ground, it chips his tooth. It's his permanent teeth. So there's a whole deal about that. So my wife is telling me this as she came home, and I'm like, okay, that's fucked up. I feel bad for the kid because I see him every weekend. Because, like I said, they take the class after my kids. But I didn't think anything outside of it. Oh, that's a fucked up situation. And then, like, literally, as right as I was about to log on to the Discord, I get a call from a number I don't recognize. I answer it, and it's the father of the kid. He's talking about suing me and all this shit for what happened with their kids. So I'm going through this whole conversation, and just out of nowhere, I was kind of caught off guard by, like, this whole phone call, and then I was dealing with that situation, and then I was like, oh man, is this a bad omen for this AMA? Because just this crazy shit out of nowhere, I got to deal with talking with this guy about lawsuits and paying bills, and pretty much I had told him, like, I don't think I'm legally obligated, but if we can, help you out with a couple $100 towards whatever's going on out of empathy for your child, I'll do that. But I don't think we're legally obligated. And, even if we wanted to pay, we couldn't pay. We live paycheck to paycheck. So to think we could pay for whatever crazy shit you're deciding. And in the phone call, he asked, he's like, well, what would you do? I was like, well, I'd never even call you. I'd figure it was two kids horsing around. Shit happened. It sucks. But I'd never call someone and try to get money out of them. And then especially, around the holiday times, too, and all of that. It just seemed, it is what it is. But it just totally caught me off guard. It was right before I was supposed to log into the Discord chat. So that was a whole drama dealing with that. Then boom, going into Discord. Then we went into the questions and answers and all that. And it was great. It was a good experience. And there was a lot of good questions. I just wish I was able to speak more with the people that were asking the questions instead of having people read the questions to me. So let's get to a few of the questions here. I got a lot to get to. I won't get to most of them on this one, but I will eventually. First, someone asked, do I like anime? Obviously, I like Dragon Ball Z. I mean, it is all back here. We can see all my little Dragon Ball Z dolls. I watched that as a kid, and I liked a lot about it. So it is something I do enjoy. I haven't watched too much anime, though, to be honest. I mean, Full Metal Alchemist is another anime series I've watched completely. Seven Samurai was another one. That was an anime series based off the movie. That's why I watched it. But I haven't watched too many animes. I watched a few movies too, anime movies too. And I generally like anime, but I just don't watch too much of it. So it's not something that I ever really got into. My children they watch a lot of anime. They'd probably be able to, tell you a lot more about anime than I could. But I every anime I have watched, I have enjoyed. Of course, there's a little pervy aspect to anime. That's I don't know. It's just part of the genre, I guess. But there's a lot of deep storyline and interesting storyline in a lot of anime too. That I think. I mean, it's why I was attracted to Dragon Ball Z. There was a lot of things they dealt with at the time I saw it that a lot of American cartoons weren't. A lot of issues of sacrifice and honor and courage and what is good and bad and all this stuff that you weren't, or you're getting distorted views in the American cartoons. So there's definitely a deepness to the plots of these themes of anime that I appreciate. But no, I'm not really a big anime fan, despite the Dragon Ball Z stuff in the background. Because like I said, it's kind of few and far between of the anime I've watched. So yeah, no, I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan. There's certain animes I enjoy. Full Metal Alchemist. I enjoyed Dragon Ball Z. The Samurai 7 anime was pretty decent. Um, I'm sure there's more that I can't think of right now. A couple movies I've seen, but outside of that, I'm not a big anime watcher. Okay, now, Thug, what are the solid differences between Marxism regimes that have changed economically, become nationalistic, and fascism? What are the key characteristics that make the government truly distinctively fascist and nothing else? What are your thoughts on the USSR? What are you politically what were you politically before setting on fascism? And finally, which current country's government world leader do you like the most? Um, so what I think about the USSR, um, you know, I think it was more good than bad because it preserved the national identity and the ethnic identity of many of these countries that were underneath the blanket of the USSR. But as far as their living standard and how they lived, it's been mostly negative. I've heard from people that have lived underneath the USSR. They thought they could, but a lot of their gripes were more about comfort essentially than anything else. So I don't know if that's really a good or bad thing. But for whatever pros and cons you can say about the USSR, it did while capitalism went into globalism naturally as it would. Stalinism, or what became the USSR, was very nationalistic, and so it preserved a lot of the culture and ethnicity of these diverse people and countries that were all under the blanket of the USSR. So I think, in an ironic way, it was a very positive thing, even though maybe on paper it wasn't intended to be what it produced. What was I politically before settling on fascism? I was probably, your typical individualist, libertarian slash anarchist type. I was very into that, less laws, less government, more living life for, the pleasures, the material pleasures you can accumulate. So, that was more of my mindset growing up before I became a collectivist. And finally, which countries in government slash world leader do you like the most? Well, Duterte in the Philippines, of course. And Putin, I mean, more so than other leaders. Like I said, I like I said in the AMA, I don't. Oh, by the way, they will upload the AMA on their own site, and I'll be able to, or on their own YouTube page, and I'll link it through my channels too for people that haven't seen it. But like I said in the AMA, like I can't figure out Putin's end game, so I don't know if he has a greater vision or if he's just completely Machiavellian for himself. I don't know. I don't. I can't. I truly can't understand what his motives are, what his end game is. So, where I see him, he's more positive than many other world leaders today. So, it would be mainly Duterte and, Putin to some extent, but definitely not to a large extent until I think his end game is revealed. Okay. What do you think about the possibility of corporatism being a transitional phase to state syndicalism? Is it even desirable for the U.S.? Do you plan on doing a video in the future on Francis Parker Yockey? I don't know. Like, I'm a corporatist myself. I mean, I don't know if this is where American fascism will lead to. Maybe it'll lead to more syndicalist system, but I'm a corporatist myself. I think syndicalism has a flaw that it could end up dividing people because syndicalism is built up of guilds, and you can have guilds that disagree with each other, causing a bunch of friction if issues arise. And corporatism has that oversight, which tries to rationalize with both sides, and if they can't, they can use force. And I think sometimes these are necessary things to get unity working. So I wouldn't. Maybe America would be more understanding to a Strasserist or syndicalist type economic philosophy, but personally, I'm a corporatist. I think that's the best way forward. So I wouldn't want to have a transitional phase from corporatism to syndicalism, because I find corporatism to be more beneficial. So why transition to anything else? As far as Yaki, I guess it'll have to be down the road. I need to finish reading Imperium first. It is just something I've never gotten around to, because I figured it would all be self-confirming anyways, because I've read enough about Yaki and enough about Imperium to get his general themes. So I've always put off reading the book, because I'd figured it'd just be confirmations of things I've already believed. So I don't know if I ever get around to doing that. I'll do a video on Yaki. Hey Thug, love these rants. What are your thoughts on YouTube channels like The Thulian Perspective, Black Pigeon Speaks, The Golden One, Jack Donovan, Braving Ruin, and Vertigo Politics? Would love to know, plus other great channels include what I've learned. Also, apart from the savages that are invading Europe, environmental damage, and consumerism, what are your thoughts on killer AI, which Elon Musk speaks about? Cheers from Switzerland. These channels, Varg, I'm a fan of Varg. I like his mentality. I like where he's coming from. I don't agree with a lot of what he's saying. I don't agree with his main theme of retreat instead of staying in the mist and battling there, having that bold, pessimistic viewpoint. But I appreciate his views, the way he perceives things. I'll listen to his social commentary. I don't get to watch all of his videos, but I do catch them time to time. And he is someone that, even though I may disagree with time to time, I find he's at least authentic in who he is. So I appreciate that. Black Pigeon Speaks. Very professional kind of videos. He talks on some good subjects, on some good matters. Very high quality production videos. Does them very well. They're all within like 10 minutes and very good for getting people to pay attention and get the message. Outside of that, nothing. I only catch a few of his as well. I don't get to catch all of them, but the few I've seen, they're well put together, decent topics. The Golden One. I've never really watched too much of him. I am aware of him. I think I've watched like 30 seconds of his videos. And I don't know. I just see something. Whenever someone's gratuitously flexing and just doing all this shit, I don't know. It just seems cartoonish to me. I quickly tune out. Maybe I judged the book by the cover on that one, but I never paid too much attention. Jack Donovan, his books. I read The Way of Men. I thought it was okay. It was something that was, at least speaking on masculinity, which we need more speaking on. I thought it was very basic. I thought he really didn't touch on the metaphysics of masculinity. It was more meatheadish and tribal masculinity that he focused on, which is better than nothing. But personally, and I'm a bit biased, I'd say my masculine virtues video touches deeper into masculinity than that book does. But with that said, it's a good book, easy to read, and it's at least speaking on a subject of masculinity that it needs to be spoken about. needs to be addressed. So at least he's doing that. And I know he catches shit because he's gay and he's speaking on masculinity, right? A little bit of irony there. But personally, how I feel about that is if you're doing the fucking and not being fucked, then you're still credible to speak on masculinity, in my opinion. But if you're getting fucked, I don't think you have any credibility to speak on masculinity. There is something masculine about doing the fucking and not getting fucked. And there's something feminine about being fucked. So it's I look at it like that. It's kind of prison rules with me. But I know a lot of people have an issue with that. But I also know too, from my experience with prison rules, that if you pitch long enough, you're eventually going to catch. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. But as far as I'm concerned, kudos to Donovan for speaking on this important topic. Now, braving ruin, and vertigo politics. I don't know these users. I just saw a couple weeks ago, Braving Ruin was like on my Culture Thug page on recommended channels on the side panel. He was there, so I clicked on and I watched a little bit of a video, and it was like well produced, well put together, and speaking on topics that it looked like I would probably agree in a large extent with what he was talking about, but I just didn't take the time to watch the full video or get to know who the person was, because I don't know, a lot of these topics are redundant with me, so I don't get too much enjoyment in self-confirmation videos, but I don't know. I don't think I can really truly have an opinion on Braving Ruin or Vertigo Politics. I haven't seen their content or enough of their content to have an opinion. And you also ask, part of Savage Euro, environmental damage, consumerism. Of course, both of these things are bad. What are your thoughts on killer AI? Yeah, I do believe in the Terminator scenario. I do believe that there should be, once again, this is why I believe in oversight. I do believe, like I've watched numerous documentaries and read some books on the whole topic of AI, and then I forget what documentary, but there's even a couple of the people working in that field that they were asked the question, like, if you knew, AI would come to dominate humans, would you still pursue artificial intelligence? And they said yes. And I think those people should be hanged right away. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I do have a concern about artificial intelligence. I do think we are playing God with these robots, and it's one of my favorite sci-fi shows is the newer remake of Battlestar Galactica, and that show is all about humans creating artificial intelligence that come to try to rule over the humans, and just like the Terminator scenario and everything. So it is something that I think we as a species, as a people, need to be aware of and speak about and have some kind of discussion on, instead of letting people in labs just do whatever they want to promote this end game they're going for of creating artificial intelligence. We have no idea where that'll lead us. So I'm not a fan of that at all. Next, I have a question. Is fascism a military government? I don't know what you mean by that. That's is it militaristic? Yeah. Is it in favor of the military? Yes. Would a decent fascist government make people, from like the age of 18 to 20, let's say, have military services? Yes, they should. So I guess it would be a military government in that sense. In a fascist nation, do you think people should be forced to get vaccinations along with their kids, or should we first create vaccinations that don't use mercury and other harmful chemicals? Of course, that would be most desirable, to take harmful chemicals out of vaccinations. I don't think anyone should be forced to get any kind of vaccinations unless it is 100% proven that, or 99% proven at least, that this certain specific vaccination prevents something that could affect the community. If there's a truth to that, then yes, there should be a vaccination. Of course, when you look at what bad does a vaccination do to you as well, you have to take that into account. But as far as like today, when you have kids are getting like 13 vaccinations, different vaccinations, no more than 6 months after they're born. Yeah, I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy. I think we need to reevaluate why we do that, and whether if it's there's a specific intent of this over vaccination of kids, or if it's simply pharmaceutical companies just making money. Whatever the reason is why our kids are getting so over vaccinated today, that like I said, there's like 3 times the vaccinations for babies today than when I was born, but yet here I am still alive and healthy. So it's like, if I'm still alive and healthy off the little vaccinations I got, why are you telling me I need to give my kids 13, 14 vaccinations by the time they're 6 months, years old? So it's, yeah, no, you wouldn't. Fascism has this stigma and dogma of this brutal state forcing you to do things that are bad for you. It's completely the opposite. Completely the opposite. That's what we live in today. That's not what fascism brings. Fascism isn't going to bring you you have to inject your kids with 13 vaccinations, some with mercury, some, curbing your child's intelligence or growth. Yeah, no. All right, lastly, a little bit of the marijuana question here. Thanks for responding to my comment. This was, let me go. It felt like you're speaking to me. I did a response on someone who was saying, hey, you're smoking weed in your videos. What are you doing? Okay. I've had some second thoughts, and I do like these videos a lot, so keep at it, please. I just got triggered with the weed. Not triggered in the purity sense, but in the addiction sense. Maybe it speaks to more of a flaw in my character than yours, so to speak. I smoked a lot in my day, and I found no middle ground. It's either all day, every day, or not at all. You see, I'm a fascist or extremist, though through and through. And while watching people smoke may not trigger me to run out and start smoking again, it certainly plants the seed, and I'll be more vulnerable to the next trigger till I cave, and cave completely. So anyways, just keep doing what you're doing. Okay. So as far as marijuana, like I sympathize with this, because when I was younger, I smoked marijuana. Not as much as most of my friends. That's because I was getting incarcerated. I didn't have the opportunity to. But so thankfully, I didn't do too much of that. And I'd recommend, like, to the younger people watching this channel, of course, you're going to experiment here and there. I think a lot of kids do, and if that happens, that happens. But as far as becoming a smoker or taking these things as normal, I would wait till your brain fully develops, because you don't want to give this uneven balance of dopamines while your brain's still forming. So at least take that into consideration. And of course, you have your negative effects of loss of short-term memory, which is completely true. But a lot of that shit you don't need to remember anyways. But whatever. That is an effect of it. It's equivalent exchange with everything. So it's whatever pros you're going to get from marijuana, there's going to be negatives to it. But as far as this addictive personality, first, I think you're right to attach the addictive personality to this fascistic persona, because the fascist is a fanatic. At least we are. People who grow up in this society and we're advocates or believers of fascism, we have to be passionate. We have to be fanatic. We have to have that kind of personality where it could lead to addiction or could lead to fanaticism towards something. This is why we're able to step outside of the box and become fascists. And most people can live underneath a fascist society, but a few people will be true, passionate, diehard fascists. Now, as far as the addictive personality, I'll get more into this when I'm going to do a video on G.I. Gushchev's philosophy, and I think it ties right into what we're talking about. But he speaks about, and this has been spoken about in different philosophers as well, but I think he speaks on it in a very clear and frank manner that can be understood and realized by people, that you are either trying to master yourself or you are a response to stimuli. So when we use this excuse of an addictive personality, we are admitting that we are not ourselves, but we are responses to stimuli. And this is why I preach moderation. This is why like I said, I was abstinence on numerous things for a decent period of my life, like 5 years, close to 5 years, and I didn't reach what I thought I needed to reach to be happy within myself, to be content within myself, to be in the best place possible within myself, because I was still admitting to myself. I wasn't aware I was admitting this to myself. I only became aware of this, post fact, but I was aware that my abstinence was just my addictive self admitting I was too weak to control myself. And I was simply, essentially, the response to the stimuli, that I wasn't really myself. I didn't have a control over myself. So when I understood that the moderation, that doing what I wanted when I wanted was true control over myself, and then breaking a habit like this just because I felt one day, oh, I've been doing this too much. You know what? I've been kind of smoking daily for 3 weeks now. So I'm going to stop for 2 weeks now. And just control of myself, just to break habits, just to show I can do what I want when I want, because I am the captain of this ship. I am. Now, if your addictive personality is affecting you, you are not captain of your ship. And this is the battle with yourself you need to engage in, to control yourself, to master yourself, to where you can do whatever you desire to do at that moment without making that a habit, without making that moment to control you and rule you and become you. And so this to me is attaching the addictive personality to the fascistic passion, to the passion of a fanatic, are two different things. That drive that would make someone a fanatic fascist is something that manifests from the self. That addictive personality is something that manifests from the surrounding stimuli around you. So you're admitting that the stimuli more molds who you are than you molding who you are yourself. So it's to attach the two is incorrect, I would say. And I say this as a fascist with an addictive personality that had learned to control and master my addictive personality, because that used to be my crutch as well. I'd have addictive personality. I can't do this because I'll just go down the rabbit hole and totally fuck my life up. That was bullshit. I didn't have control over myself. So that's why that had happened. And I think that might be the same thing with you, that once you understand, you dictate who you are, not an addiction, not stimuli around you. You manifest your reality. Once you truly understand that, all these other things will not have an effect over you, because you will put more importance in yourself and in controlling yourself than these materials can control you. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand what I'm getting at there. So it's two different things to me. I think, and I understand why you lumped them together, because it's kind of a same fanaticism that could drive an addict and a fascist at the same time, but they're from two different births. They're from two different well springs. And you need to understand that. The addiction is the reaction to the stimuli. The passion for a belief is something that is manifested within the self. Two different things. So we're 30 minutes into this, or past 30 minutes, so I'll end it here. There's a lot of shit I need to get to, and I will eventually, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But as for now, once again, cheers, gentlemen. Thanks if you tuned into the AMA Thank you for doing so. It was a lot of good questions, thought out questions. Not everyone was happy with all of my answers, which is good. And I wish I could have got more back and forth with the people that weren't happy with some of my responses. But maybe next time. Until then, cheers.